Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are in the world. I hope this finds you well. Today, we have a very special episode. We have Miko Genno here, who some of you may know who are in the Kaspa community. Miko has been creating various indicators for TradingView that can be used on the Kaspa chart, like the rainbow chart that on Bitcoin. He's kind of translated that over to Kaspa, and some other oscillators and various indicators that help find opportune times to potentially DCA, get into Kaspa, and scale out of Kaspa if you're trying to trade it, or if you're just trying to DCA. Also helpful. Just some interesting perspectives on the charts. A little different than what I do, but also very useful and interesting. So I'm happy to have Miko with us to share his thoughts, and hopefully you all can get something out of it. And you'll find Miko on Twitter, and he's also got a YouTube channel. So make sure you check out his socials. And yeah, so happy to have you here.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much for having me on. It's gonna be a good one, I think.
Yeah, it's a nice day. It looks like things are actually pumping a little bit. Bitcoin's up above 68,000, and Caspa's kind of coming up above the bull market support band. So I think first we'll maybe introduce Miko a bit, and then we'll get into some charts. I'll let Miko introduce himself and put it over to his screen, and he can tell us how he got into trading, and maybe how he found Caspa. And yeah, why don't you take it from here?
Yeah, perfect, man. So I got into trading in 2020 during the lockdowns, which I think is similar to a lot of people. Started playing around on Trading 212, which is I think a UK based app, and had absolutely no idea what I was doing, like most people. But I think my first ever trade was a win. So then
That's good.
quickly lost the rest of my bag, and then kind of got a little bit deeper into sort of the trading community and the trading mindset, and participated a little bit in the 2020 2021 bull run in stocks. And then from that, I kind of saw Bitcoin, and I saw it move from say 20 to 40k, and it kind of piped my interest a little bit, but I still didn't buy it because I didn't really understand anything at that point. I didn't understand anything about the macro picture or anything. And then someone in one of the like trading stocks community that I knew had made a huge amount of money on SafeMoon, if you remember that one. So
Yeah,
I kind of found a SafeMoon copycat, and made a little bit of money off that. So that was kind of my intro into crypto. Quickly gave back all the money that I'd made, but then started really diving deeper into crypto and macro, and what crypto is, and the problem it was trying to solve. So kind of got in 2021, and then I was looking for projects to profit from in the upcoming bull run, and I came across Casper, and I actually came across Casper at about 100 million market cap,
wow.
but I didn't do my due diligence at that point, and I wasn't looking to deploy capital at that time. I was kind of just looking for projects that could potentially do well. So I came across it, but I didn't understand it, and I didn't pull the trigger until about a year later.
Hmm. What would you say really was the critical point where you realized that it was something special that you did want to? Because it seems like you yeah, you focus a lot of on Caspa. So what was it about Caspa that set it apart for you, that made it very interesting, and seems like you probably began to understand Bitcoin as well, like before that, and that allowed you to kind of see that maybe Caspa was shared similar fundamentals. So you kind of went from being sort of a Bitcoin maxi to I don't know if you are a Kaspa maxi or
Yeah,
some,
so I was basically a Bitcoin maxi, sort of understanding the problem of money that Bitcoin was trying to solve and is trying to solve, and for me at least, recognizing that most other projects out there, at least in my opinion, are a step backwards, not a step forwards. So really holding Bitcoin as my money and understanding that that was money, and then to me all of these other projects were something to profit off and something to ride up and then flip back into Bitcoin. So yeah, basically I was a Bitcoin maxi, but then I think it was just through following people on Twitter, and talking about solving the trilemma, I sort of started doing a bit more of a deep dive into Casper. And I my first real thought when I actually truly understood what it was, I just had this sinking feeling in my stomach as someone with the vast majority of my net worth in Bitcoin. This Casper has come along, and in my opinion, is the real first ever project that can legitimately threaten Bitcoin, and is one of the best competitors for that place as the global money. So as a responsible investor, obviously I immediately have to jump in. So initially I
mm,
jumped in purely on fundamentals, and understanding that, and then I kind of started getting more into the technicals as well, and realizing that this trades very differently and is quite different to any other cryptocurrency out there. So that was really how I got into Casper.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think a lot of, at least for me too. When I went into this past bear market, I was most interested in accumulating Bitcoin, because it generally holds up well in a bear market compared to a lot of things which die. And I kind of started DCAing like small amounts of other things. But yeah, when I found Caspa, I quickly began just converting all my other holdings into Caspa, and then eventually even sold my Bitcoin for Caspa, which
That's I've got a lot of respect for that, mate. That's
yeah,
a
yeah,
big
yeah,
move to do. It's a big move.
yeah. So that's what I decided to do, and the timing worked out. So I think it's okay. The fundamentals are just so similar that it feels, as far as being out, crypto's more risky than holding maybe the S&P 500 or whatever. There's obviously things you can do that are less risk, but in crypto, I think that Caspo has a nice risk to reward ratio. It allows me to have some exposure to something that potentially will have high return, but also what I consider personally to be less risky, just because we know what it is. We know it's a proof of work with emissions that are basically, it doesn't have VCs in it, so it just has a very fixed emission schedule, just similar to Bitcoin. So we can kind of expect how the coins are going to come into circulation, and no funny business with like VCs dumping with tokens unlocking and all that. So it feels safer to me, and
Yeah,
obviously
for
the
sure, mate.
the fundamentals are strong. Yeah.
To me, Casper is the best risk reward that has been available to us since Bitcoin in 2012,
Mm-hmm.
13.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think the risk reward is just insane. I mean, depending on your time frame, I think
Mm-hmm.
you'd be insane not to own at least a little bit of Casper.
Yeah. Yeah. So why don't we get into the charts a little bit? Like you have some indicators that are pretty interesting to look at. Like
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So as I say, I kind of got into Casper, and realized basically how similar it was to Bitcoin in terms of how it traded and all of its technicals. And so I kind of just started applying a lot of the different models that we have for Bitcoin to Casper. So obviously the rainbow chart is a very, very famous one. Most people know about that with Bitcoin, and I kind of noticed that you could apply the same to Casper basically. So yeah, with the lower bands kind of indicate that you're coming to a very strong area of support, and historically has been an incredibly good time to buy. And then depending on your strategy, when you're getting to the upper bands, it's either a good time to sell or maybe start stacking cash, waiting for the next time you come to the lower bands to do sort of a weighted DCA strategy. So I noticed that, and then obviously the power law as well. Bitcoin follows a power law, so we have the power law bands again, which kind of just show the periods of peak bubble areas, and then the peak despair areas where everyone's panicking and thinking that it's over, which really has felt like it here. There's been a lot of fear and a lot of panic in the markets, I think, and it's done exactly what we thought it was going to do. It's bounced perfectly off this lower band, and looks primed for this next move up. And then there's two others which I'm quite proud of. There's the oscillator and the full model. Is that loaded up? Yeah, there we go. So as most of you guys probably know, Casper follows a fairly predictable, I think, 8 to 4 month cycle with an 8 month sort of harmonic, as opposed to Bitcoin's 4-year harmonic. And so this indicator basically combines both the periodicities and the power law growth features of Casper. So kind of tries to predict both the prices and timings of the peaks, and then again using the oscillator down on the bottom, when the value reaches the upper red line, indicates that's a pretty good time to stealth historically, and then when it reaches this green line, that's a pretty good time to buy. I've actually back tested this indicator, and if you'd been in from the start, obviously you're doing very well just regardless, but if you'd been using this strategy, it's returned 10x the amount of Casper you've had. So if you started with
Wow.
100k just on a long sort of strategy, no shorting involved, you now have 1 million Casper. So
Wow. It's pretty amazing how what's the word? How equidistant it looks, all those peaks and valleys. It's all very very uniform looking, and just, yeah, it seems very organic, like very predictable in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned this as well. Casper is one of the cleanest assets out there to trade. It is just so cyclical and so harmonic almost.
Yeah, I see, like the last accumulation range, I'll just show right here, like the last accumulation range that we had, like right here, really is just so similar to the current one. I would just say that the drawdown, just the fact that the drawdown was less severe, like 50% versus 70%. I mean, a lot of people have felt, I think, very frustrated with the price action recently, just because it's been going sideways for so long, and especially if someone found Caspa up in here and got into it, and it really hasn't done anything too much since then, other than go sideways. But if you really break it down, the drawdown has been less severe than the past one, and also the timing has been so far within the bounds of the last accumulation phase at 5 cents. So it feels very normal to me. It doesn't, to me, seem like there's any problem going on. It's still, if you zoom out, it just all looks super organic, as just as you were showing on your chart it all looks pretty nice, and the volatility seems to be decreasing over time too.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so it is kind of it has been frustrating holding Casper over the past few months, but I think Casper is basically doing exactly what we expect it to do. And
Hmm.
you mentioned it's a sort of 50% drawdown here. If you take the wick, it's more, but if you kind of ignore the wick, it's actually been even less. So it's not been a huge amount of volatility at all. It's more been, as you mentioned, sort of a time-based capitulation,
Hmm.
where it's just
Hmm.
people are just getting bored and people are seeing a lot of other assets outperforming, and so they get fed up
Hmm.
and move on. And I think now is the absolute worst time you could do that.
Hmm.
I think we look absolutely primed for a next move up, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, I'm seeing some signs right now that if we go to this chart, for example, um, Caspa seems to fall into these descending channels over and over again. You can kind of see that right now we're actually at the top of the channel, and if we break above, um, that will be a good indication that it's ready to make a bigger move to the upside. You can see if you go back, really anytime it's broken out of the channel and back tested it, that allowed it to really pump hard. The channels seem to kind of hold Caspa down until they don't. So you can kind of just go back over time and see how they react to the upper side of the parallel channel on the bottom side, and it'll test the top, it'll test the midline, and then it'll pop up. And um, it also will either hold the bull market support band, which is the 20 and 21 week SMA and EMA, or it'll keep it down a little bit. There were instances, right, where it fell below, popped up, and it had a hard time getting back above here, but eventually it did break up, and then it cruised higher, and the moving averages held as support, for example, here and here. And so when we look at the current price action, we have some potential resistance here, but it's kind of like the more times you push against something, the more likely it is to break through. So it does seem like just this little, just on a very small time frame, this little correction has been pretty mild, and it's coming back up. So I see that, and it makes me wonder if this is the time that it breaks through. And we also look at Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is starting to cruise up as well. So it's gotten above the midline on this channel. It's it touched the 2.236, and that held the support. And to me, it all looks pretty nice. So I don't see any signs that are concerning me at the moment. So
Yeah, for sure,
yeah.
man. So from my point of view, Casper, it looks absolutely primed.
Hmm.
I think this is probably the start of the next move. To me, this kind of, I'm not really a big TA guy, but this looks like a inverse head and shoulders.
Mm.
So once we break this sort of 13.3 level, we should start coming back up. And then, once the momentum starts shifting, you can have pullbacks. But once people have noticed that the momentum starts shifting, the traders will start piling back in, and then once you do
Hmm.
break that all-time high, you'll have that next impulsive move, which is
Mm.
what I see happening, and that perfectly lines up with this sort of mini big cycle fractal that
Hmm.
Casper follows.
What
I
do
see.
you what do you think what do you think could be some of the next upside targets for like the next swing before the next drawdown?
Yeah, so I mean, I see us. We've had this major cycle here, which was the impulsive move, and then put in this mini all time high, but wasn't really a impulsive move. So that's major, mini, and then this, I believe, we're now building base into the next major cycle, which I think will bring us to. It's never good idea to throw out price predictions, obviously, because it's a touchy subject. But
Hmm.
absolute minimum 0.35 and absolute maximum, I'd say 60 cents. I would
Mm.
expect more in the 40 to 50 cent range, and
Mm.
that is what the rainbow band predicts. I believe at the time the peak is predicted based on the sort of power law timings and cycle timings. It should be a mid July to late August peak, or
Mm.
early July to late July.
That's interesting. Yeah, so that oscillator you showed before is, so it looks like that the top of that band is currently at 42 cents, and then is there any way to extrapolate forward
Uh,
based on that oscillator on the bottom, potential timing
not
of the
not
net?
on TradingView, unfortunately.
No. Okay. Okay.
TradingView has limitations. I do actually have a bot on my Discord
Oh,
where you
okay.
can input the date, and it will tell you the maximum like allowable price, the minimum allowable price,
Okay.
and the fair
Okay.
value. So we do
Is
use
that
that.
is
But
that is that where you're getting the potential July and August timeframe for the
I think,
next?
yeah, just based on that, and also kind of
Okay.
what I know from the growth of this model, it'll be
Okay.
yeah. I think the top band will be 55 cents in mid July. So
Okay.
depending on how impulsive the move is, and
Right.
we have touched this band quite a few times.
Right.
We did fail to hit it on this this major cycle here, but just depending on
Well,
how impulsive the move is. Yeah,
yeah. Well, I think that's interesting because, yeah, I mean, in terms of that move you just pointed at, I like to look at the Fibonacci's. So it's interesting because if you draw a fib on this accumulation range here, or this drawdown, essentially became an accumulation, big accumulation zone, and the top of that was 14 cents. So it's interesting that that's where it stopped. So if we look, looking at the rainbow band, it didn't quite get to the top of the rainbow band, the top band of it, but it did reach the 14 cents level. So the way I look at it, in terms of where it peaked out, was just basically the 4.236 on the Fibonacci. And currently, if we draw one here, you can see also that that correlates with 47 cents up here, which is interesting because let's go back to yours. That currently is at 42 cents for the top of it. So really, to me, the way I look at it is like it depends on the timing.
yeah, exactly.
Depends on
Slightly.
the timing. Yeah.
It's interesting though that both the fib plus the rainbow band predicts that sort of range, that 45 to maybe 55 range.
Yep.
It's certainly a lot of confluence and
For sure.
adds weight to it.
Yeah, we like confluence, so
we
that's
do, we
good.
do.
That's good to see that there are similar levels there, on the rainbow band and the drawing Fibonacci as well.
Yeah, and then so after July, based on cycle theory, we should then go into roughly a 2 month drawdown. It kind of remains to be seen how big of a drawdown it's going to be. I think the more extended we get, realistically, probably the bigger the drawdown will be. But so that should bring us into sort of maybe late August to mid September should be
Hmm.
the next bottom, and then the mini cycle should bring us back to the all-time highs. But I don't expect us to significantly break them. I think
Hmm.
maybe 10 to 20% above the previous all-time high,
Oh,
which again is going to kind of look like a sideways move, like this has been.
so you think this next move up, it would do, would you say 20-30% above the current all-time high? Is that what you said?
No, so
Oh,
this
oh.
next move is the next major cycle. So that should
Uh-huh.
bring
Yeah,
us,
yeah.
the major cycles historically are basically an impulsive move where it's kind
Right.
of
So the next one is
yeah, it's interesting. The major cycles, not only are they much bigger in nature, but the structure of them is also sort of more typical of what you'd expect in cryptocurrency. It's kind of
hmm,
it starts off slow and then it speeds up, and it has kind of this mini blow off top, if you like. Whereas the mini cycles more so have kind of this rounded nature, and it's less of an impulsive move and
yep, yep.
more of kind of a distribution looking um, pattern, if you
Or
like.
or accumulation or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. I guess some people are maybe distributing, but other people are
yeah.
accumulating.
So
Who's-
so this next move, yeah, I see being a big impulsive move up to sort of yeah 0.05 ish level.
mhm. Okay, cool. Yeah, I agree. I think that the market cap. I mean, as time goes on and the market cap gets higher, it takes more capital to move it. But I think the fundamentals justify buyers coming in. I think a lot of people are going to begin FOMOing into it once it's clearly breaking out. I think it's still kind of in this boring zone that uh, people are not necessarily um, feeling confident enough to really get in. People always do the opposite. They get into
Yeah,
it when it's breaking out. Some people buy the breakout, but
yeah, yeah,
I'd rather if the price is low, I'd rather that's when I'd rather buy. It's like going to the store and your favorite food item is on sale. You buy 10 of them. So
exactly.
if the price is high, you're like, oh, why is it so high today? I'm not gonna buy as many. But if you know what it is and you like it, you buy more.
Exactly.
Not
Yeah.
financial advice, but I'm
Of
talking about
course.
food. I'm talking about food right now.
You got to say it. You got to say it.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, like all these the price was going down. If you believe in it over the long term, it's the way I look at it
Yeah.
is that it's on sale, and then when it's high, price is high, maybe you consider selling some because inevitably the price is going to go down again. I mean, the whole idea. Some people, especially like hardcore Bitcoin maxis, are like, I've heard people actually say that the whole world is going to be denominated in Satoshis and the Bitcoin chart is going to just like become horizontal and everything's going to be, yeah, denominated in Bitcoin. But I don't believe that. There's always inefficiencies in the markets and prices there's going to be money to be made trading in and out. So
Yeah.
that it's really worth trying to, even if it's not day trading, but like timing it on a longer term, it could be on a monthly time frame or over the course of 1 to 2 years, and think about it that way. That's kind of how I prefer to go about it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's the S curve model where
hmm hmm
we've had this kind of diminishing returns, but they believe because of the supply sort of crunch that is is continuously happening with Bitcoin, and the demand growing, it's just going to send it absolutely parabolic.
hmm
It would be nice, but I don't
would
see
be
it happening.
nice. It would be nice. Yeah, for sure,
Um,
for sure.
and it's kind of the same with Casper. To be honest, I see this trend continuing with still extremely high returns at the minute, but fundamentally diminishing returns.
hmm
Whereas I think quite a few people want to see a sort of huge blow off top in Casper, which again would be nice, but it's kind of not what I expect to happen. You see
hmm
some people calling for say $10 this bull run, which I think is too optimistic.
mm. Yeah, I think here, let me get this screen here. I think 10 is a bit much too. I mean, I'm looking at, if we look at this as I've been projecting, just hypothetically, obviously not financial advice, but just because um, Charles Hoskinson and Vitalik Buterin, from Cardano and Ethereum, There's videos circulating that speaking highly of Jonathan Sampolinsky, the founder of Kaspa, and work that he's created academically, just as back, as far as back as like over 10 years ago, have really just inspired a lot of the projects that have come about in crypto, including Ethereum, including Cardano. And Cardano is interesting just because the supply is similar to Caspa, so you can kind of get a feel for what Caspa could potentially do price wise if it had a similar market cap as Cardano had the last cycle, for example. So that was part of the reason when I started seeing those videos early on that I really started accumulating, aside from the fundamentals, it just everything Caspa really just sold itself to me. And I think there are actually still a lot of people who haven't seen those videos. I don't see them circulating as much anymore, maybe because those of us who have seen them have kind of become familiar and just kind of forget that maybe not everyone has seen them, so we stop sharing them or something like that. But in any case, like attracts like. It's kind of a universal phenomenon, right? Like you kind of make friends that are you have similar interests, and like attracts like. So Caspa is in good company if Vitalik and Charles Hoskinson are both speaking highly of Jonathan Sampolinsky, and a lot of his work has inspired top 10 projects, Cardano, Ethereum, even he's even mentioned in the Ripple white paper, the XRP. So fundamentally, to me, it's on the cutting edge. It's like the product of 10 over 10 years of research and development, and just recently launched a network and a coin more recently, but it's been a long time coming. So when I project these things out, just hypothetically in my mind to kind of help navigate the market, and potential levels that I'm interested in for Caspa, just looking at between $1 and $5 for this cycle just do seem to me realistic. Five would be like very optimistic, just because that would be above a Cardano sized market cap at its all-time high last cycle, which is around 90 billion.
Yeah, that would take it to around 4, wouldn't it? If it was
Yeah,
100 billion.
right, because it does matter the amount of circulating supply at the time. So it does also depend on the time that Caspa puts in its peak and Bitcoin's peaking, and the whole market moves together. So it depends on timing and how many coins are circulating. But yeah, currently, like if it got to, I don't know today what it would be, but probably be more like $4, and maybe back here, it would have been $5. So, but I think somewhere between 1 and 5 is probably fair game. I think 50 cents would be pretty conservative.
Yeah, sure, man.
Which obviously isn't necessarily a huge ROI from 12 cents, but hey, I mean, it depends how much money you're putting into it. Also, like
That's
if you want to put in $100 and get a lotto ticket on whiff, or some low cap coin that could also go to zero, then hey, everyone's welcome to buy a lotto ticket too. But for me, Caspa just feels like a more serious project. I mean, you can go on Google Scholar and find, 100 references to Jonathan Sampolinsky. He's all over the place, and this is just cutting edge as far as like decentralized finance, and I mean that in the sense of I mean that in the sense of like peer-to-peer electronic cash, and obviously smart contracts are coming and all that stuff. So
I think WIF holders have obviously outperformed CAS holders over the past few months, and power to them. But I think anyone who's investing seriously and understands what Caspa is kind of in it for the long run. Whereas something like WIF is going to get absolutely wrecked during this bear market. So I feel a lot. I sleep a lot better holding Caspa than I do holding WIF, because I actually believe in the long-term fundamentals of Caspa. Whereas if I was holding WIF, with any sort of significant amount of capital, then I wouldn't sleep very well at all. So I think it really depends on your time frame. But in terms of sort of $1 to $5, I think that's very realistic. as you know, I'm a power law guy, and the top band of the power law in sort of late 2025, which if we do have a typical bull market, that would bring us to around $3, which I think is pretty realistic. I actually see Kaspa, depending on where the Bitcoin peak is. I see Kaspa continuing to follow its own cycle in a way. I've worked out the maximum potential drawdown, and let's say we have 10% wick above the power law band, and then a 10% wick below it, which would still not invalidate the power law at all. That would allow for around a 80 to 85% drawdown. So I can definitely see Kaspa having that sort of drawdown, but I don't think the Kaspa bear market is going to be anywhere near as bad as we've kind of come to expect in crypto. I sort of talk a lot about how similar Kaspa is to Bitcoin in terms of the structure, but
well, what would be an 80% drawdown from, like, if it gets to $3?
$3 that would bring us to around
like 50 cents or something, or what?
It'd be around a 66% drawdown would be $1, so 80% would be around 80 cents or so, 70 cents, that sort of range.
Here, let's see. So, like, say it got to $3, and it drew down, like, like even 80% would be around almost 60 cents. And if it went down like 90% from $3, that's still higher than it is now, which just to me feels like $3. Given the fundamentals, I would be surprised if it can't get there this cycle.
Absolutely, man.
And so it just feels like it. You look at this chart and you think about that, and it's just like doing this super long accumulation that is pretty much a spitting image of this accumulation. And it just seems like, to me, it's on sale right now, and people aren't even. I mean, of course, some of us are. I'm not saying everyone, but it just seems like it's on sale to me. It's funny how that is.
Boggles my mind, like how many people are sleeping on Kaspa. We kind of have an echo chamber on X, so we interact with all the other Kaspa guys, but there's so many people out there who don't even understand what it is yet, and I think are just sleeping on it and are gonna basically be forced to adopt it. I like the saying, everyone gets Kaspa at the price they deserve, right?
True. Yeah.
We all can research it and understand what it is now. Anyone who's in crypto, whereas a lot of us got into crypto a lot later than others, so we had no hope of getting into Bitcoin at sort of $100 level, whereas buying Kaspa now is the equivalent of buying Bitcoin at around, I think it's around $150 at 13 cents, kind of the equivalent market cap. So
and the thing is people have this way of equating price with value instead of the other way around. So if the price is not so exciting, it's lackluster, it's moving down, there must be something wrong with it. So same thing with Bitcoin, right? People feel probably in all the early days with Bitcoin, price was going down. They thought it was going to zero. I remember in past cycles just wondering if Bitcoin was going to go to zero. And it took me a few cycles to be like, oh, it's not. So now it's just a matter of timing it. And you lose that fear that it's going to go to zero. And I mean, granted, Caspa is way younger and obviously more risky than Bitcoin in that sense. And obviously we don't know anything. We have no crystal ball, magic ball, with knowing with 100% certainty what how the future is going to play out. But if you develop conviction, it's a little bit easier to be rational, I think, because if the price is going down and you believe in it and you think ultimately it's going to go up, and it just becomes a matter of how much can you get at the best price.
Exactly,
And
man. I'm
so
obsessed with just holding as many Casper as I can at the minute.
yeah, yeah. And when they're just printing money, it kind of becomes easier, right? If you think about
Exactly. Yeah.
fixed supply, hard money, same phenomenon with Bitcoin or what gold
Yeah.
is theoretically. Although some people would say that Bitcoin is technically more scarce than gold, but and maybe Caspa too. So to me, it's just like as they print money because fiat is going to zero ultimately. Like things like this, assets are going to just trend up. So it's kind of like a no-brainer.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think
And
I've heard you said yesterday that you you basically treat Bitcoin as your savings account.
yeah, so I don't really hold any other assets or really cash. Basically,
Yeah.
I have a bit of Bitcoin.
Hmm.
And I kind of treat that as my savings, not money that I'm going to need, obviously, because
Right.
Bitcoin is volatile. So if you're going to need money,
Hmm.
but I'm in a pretty
Yeah.
fortunate situation. So I have
Nice.
I have that Bitcoin, which I kind of have as my hedge and as my risk, and then the rest is in Casper. So
Right
it's
on.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty much all in, bro.
Yeah, yeah, we do it a little differently, but we're both hedging in different ways. So
Yeah,
you pretty much use Bitcoin as your savings account, and I'm like 100. On the contrary, I'm like 100% Caspa in my crypto portfolio, but I have fiat just as a hedge basically, so that regardless
yeah,
of what the market does, I'll be okay and I can sleep well. At the end of the day. Also, holding Caspa, I feel good about that. So having fiat and then just 100% Caspa, I'm good with that. But
yeah,
since you're treating Bitcoin as your savings account, what do you think about the Bitcoin chart? Are you
yeah. I mean, so
monitoring that closely? What do you? Or let's go. I don't know if you
I
have any.
definitely look at it from time to time. Obviously,
Uh
Casper does, in the short term, follow Bitcoin.
hmm.
So the price action has obviously kind of been impacted by this little dip here.
Hmm.
I'm not a TA guy, but this looks pretty bullish to me.
Hmm.
Where is it? The bull market support band. Yeah, we just bounced straight off it. I can definitely see us coming back to test it, but I
Hmm.
think I think it's kind of irrelevant what Bitcoin does. I kind of honestly I don't really check the price that much. I
Hmm.
mainly just
Yeah.
look at Casper, and then to be honest, I see Casper basically doing what it's going to do, regardless of what Bitcoin does. I think um, we follow our own cycles pretty clearly and pretty cleanly. That unless Bitcoin nukes to $1,000 or something, I think Casper's going to go into this cycle anyway, regardless of what Bitcoin does.
Hmm. Yeah, I
So
think. Yeah,
that's kind
I
of how
think.
how I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Caspa just looks pretty primed to to move up, and so I think I mean looking at Bitcoin too, honestly, it looks pretty good. Like the way I see it is, yeah, I mean the next level of resistance would be the top of this channel, this parallel channel. We're really we're really cruising today, actually. So it's looking pretty good. We back tested the midline on this parallel channel, and then we haven't been moving higher. We've been blasting through the 618. We're now at the 702. And if we can keep cruising, then we're pushing the 786 and then the top of this channel. I think the next area beyond that would be obviously the all-time high, and that could potentially, depending on the timing, correlate of to the we zoom out, we have the midline of this big parallel channel right here. So we have this midline, and if we cruise up here, depending on timing, we may hit both of those around the same time. And once we get above that, well, I mean, we can look at the overall timing of the market. It's interesting because I think the left translated cycle is out the window at this point. I was looking at that as one possibility because last cycle we just, as soon as we tested the all-time high, we just broke higher,
Yeah.
and we put in a peak pretty soon after. But this time it's interesting because the Bitcoin halving came at a time when price was ahead of schedule on Bitcoin. It was already at the all-time high. And then we had a halving. Back here, for example, we had the Bitcoin halving in May of 2020, and price was still only at like around 10,000. So we essentially, this cycle, we've been ahead of schedule. And so that would have been really, really, really bullish if it just kept cruising up. So it looks to me more like at this moment, we have to look at, once again, we are potentially looking at a timing similar to the way the previous cycles have occurred with price,
Yeah.
I
Like a late
guess.
late
A late,
2025.
yeah, we could
Yeah.
we could push it out maybe to 2025. Of course, it could do anything. If we started breaking below the bull market support band, then we would have to obviously take that into consideration as well. But right now, everything to me is looking pretty pretty fine and dandy. Like this big wick off the bull market support band. You know, you can come back and look at other times. I might have some other examples where, like on this chart, for example, big wick off the bull market support band led to higher prices.
Yeah, I just got
If we
the
go back even to this cycle and back in like 2017, you can kind of see how these moving averages hold. If they hold, it's generally a good sign. So we get on the weekly time frame, if we get a big wick, boom, like it's pretty bullish. So
yeah. It'd be interesting to see if we do come back below the bull market support band at any point. You would expect yes, purely because the market cap's that much higher. But could be interesting if we don't. That probably would be an early peak for sure.
yeah, I mean, just because we got this big wick on the weekly, I would honestly be surprised if it came back and like fell below it. It's possible it could test it again, but maybe it things just keep cruising up, and let me change the color here, and it comes back and it tests it right here or something and does something like
Yeah,
that and bounces off. I Yeah, I think that I would be surprised if it just fell through again. So yeah, so it's looking pretty good. I'm trying to think of what else we haven't done yet. Do you have any other indicators or anything like that you wanna?
so they're the main ones. We've got a risk metric, which we use to catch the swing highs and the swing lows again. I also got the Kai cycle top, which is you got to use that on the daily. Very similar to the Pi cycle top. It's quite a famous Bitcoin indicator. Basically, two moving averages, and when they cross, it sort of tags and tries to time the top. It caught this peak. It kind of missed this one. Although, to be fair, I see this one as more of it was kind of a dead cat bounce that actually put in an all-time high. Just because again, it
Hmm.
was not a big move up. I kind of see this as being the main peak of that move. And then yeah, we caught this one pretty nicely and caught this one pretty decently on this move back up. So it's not quite as spot on as the Pi cycle indicator is. If you know
Hmm.
that one's caught the top. I
Yeah.
think within a week, every single time.
Hmm. So it's when you're looking for when they touch.
exactly, and then it
Mm-hmm.
actually sort of spits out and
Mm-hmm.
tells you.
Cool.
Um, yeah, so they're kind of the main ones that we use. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but
Okay.
then yeah, it's kind of just like cycle timing plus power law. I think really tells you what you can expect from Casper, and tells you how it's going to behave going forward. I think it's very predictable, at least for now. At this point, we'll see if we
Mm-hmm.
get thrown any curveballs, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think the we can attribute that to the fundamentals, which are just very, very well thought out, just very carefully constructed by the devs and academics behind it, Jonathan Sampolinski and Shai and Michael Sutton and all them. They really created something that I think fundamentally
it's sound. It's so
is
sound.
sound. Is
Yeah,
sound. Yeah. The
yeah.
For those who don't know who are listening, the supply is almost almost all in circulation already. Not quite,
I
but
think it's around 80% at the minute. It's 23
yeah,
billion out of 28.7 billion.
right, right. And
So
when you zoom out and you look at that and you consider that, it's pretty amazing because let's see, it's pretty amazing because they really pumped the supply out very quickly, and the reason why they did that was to be more fair. Actually, they specifically chose an algorithm for Caspa, a proof of work algorithm for which no ASIC miners existed on the market yet. That, for example, like were being used by Bitcoin miners that could just be switched over to Caspa and just steal a bunch of the supply. So they specifically chose an algorithm for which no miners existed yet and allowed people to mine it on their home computers, and then just allowed for a very rapid emission schedule, which allowed people, just ordinary people, to mine Caspa and get accumulate Caspa pretty evenly and fairly without any big wealthy individuals or mining operations coming in and just scooping up coins. So the distribution for that reason is very fair, and I think that that can be part of the reason why we see such a beautiful looking chart. So
yeah, man. And also, so, I know for a fact that the devs are, incredibly intelligent people, and I think they've thought out every single aspect of Casper. And I think one of the reasons they used the faster emission schedule is because Casper is fundamentally competing with Bitcoin to become the better form of money. And so I think it's in mid 2028. I think it's May 2028. The inflation rate of Casper will actually be lower than Bitcoin. So not only will Casper be
mm,
massively more scalable, it will actually be harder money in the sense that it will have a lower inflation rate. So I think that's planned pretty carefully
mm,
by the devs.
yeah. It's like Caspa is coming to age quicker than Bitcoin, where Bitcoin's supply will still be being emitted like well beyond our lifetime. So past 2100, Caspa's like supply is going to be fully in circulation, I believe, 2037. And
Yeah, 2039 I think it is. Yeah.
2039. Okay. So it's kind of like, yeah, uh, Bitcoin's still going to have the training wheels on, and Caspa's going to be like a full adult. Caspa's like Benjamin Button, growing old very quickly. so, so yeah, I mean, I think just the way they built it is really it's just well thought out. They're doing it for real. It seems like Bitcoin in a lot of ways is almost, when you look at it, as is like a I mean, Bitcoin maxis would hate anyone saying this, but it just seems like Bitcoin's like the test net for Caspa, because Caspa is just fundamentally everything Bitcoin should have been. Bitcoin's just too slow and expensive. Any L2s like Lightning Network or any ways to scale it. Just sacrifice decentralization and maybe security. I don't know. Things come into question when you start adding layers on top of it.
Exactly, man. Yeah,
And
go on. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, and so Caspa just it just it just on the base layer it scales. It scales and it's got the security of a proof of work, and it really is everything Bitcoin hoped to be, but Satoshi could, maybe for whatever reason, his own limitations and what he knew and what he could do, just he couldn't make Bitcoin really how he envisioned it being used. It's definitely not money. Maybe it's a store of value. It's done well enough over time that I think we can say that it seems like it's been a pretty good store of value. But it's not going to be used as money. So it's kind of like digital gold, and that's why Caspa is called Caspa, because in what is it, ancient Aramaic, it means silver. So silver
Yeah, yeah,
was more easily divided, divisible, so it's more easily exchanged. So that's, I believe, the idea behind the name and why they chose to call it Caspa, because it's the silver to Bitcoin's gold, whereas gold is store of value. Caspa is more so ideally going to be used as money.
yeah, man. So while we can criticize the Bitcoin maxis and they do have their flaws, one of the things that I sort of keep from my maxi days is that deep fundamental understanding of what money is, and the properties that it has to have, and fundamentally why basically everything else that has come out on the market after Bitcoin has been a step backwards. And Casper is the first project which really is a great leap forward from Bitcoin. And so that's why I put out a lot of sort of extremely bullish predictions. And while again not financial advice, and it's impossible to predict the future completely, based off what I know and based off my background, Casper is basically the only competitor that I see that has the chance of becoming money, of fulfilling that role of money. Bitcoin can't do it on the base layer. And then, as you mentioned, yeah, going to those layer twos, that increases centralization, which makes, it gives power to those who have the centralization. And so while Bitcoin's tenant is that decentralization, if it can't scale, then it will have to reduce that decentralization to scale. Whereas Casper, can maintain those three tenets of the trilemma. And so, I am pretty bullish going forward, specifically for the long term. Again, not financial advice. And guys, I do need to just say control risk.
Yeah,
Don't
we're obviously both hedged in different ways,
exactly,
and
exactly.
we're everyone is in a different position and coming at investing from a different place and mindset and ability. And so I think we're just sharing and documenting, as for educational reasons, and sharing what we believe is good. And it's something obviously we all enjoy. We're here to try to make money and preserve our capital and wealth, as we probably, many of us who are here, do see the reality that if you look at the purchasing power of the dollar or euro or whatever XYZ fiat over time, they're all just kind of going to zero. A slow death. Houses are getting more expensive, food is getting more expensive,
They will
and we all
trend
see
to.
that. We're not here in a naive way where we aren't aware of the risks of buying the peak of something that crashes and goes to zero. Like, I mean, anything can happen. This is very experimental in some ways, but also maybe there's some gems, some diamonds in the rough, and we're thinking, we're here talking about Caspa because we think it has staying power.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll be honest, the first time I bought Caspa was right here. So I obviously I'm up a lot, and I haven't sold anything yet. And I'm in a position to relax because I did the work over the bear market, and I kind of saw something about it that seemed promising. I didn't obviously put everything in right here. I wish I did, to be honest, but I was again getting back in like down here, and when price goes down, sometimes I DCA, and that's how I go about it. And I just believe it's undervalued. So, when I go back and I look at this, I genuinely believe, just based on fundamentals and calculating the potential market cap to price, I think it can get up there. And that's so obviously I'm trying to not only preserve my wealth, but make some money. And that's why I'm here. And I think everyone needs to know how to manage the risk and only obviously invest what they can afford to lose, because at the end of the day, anything can happen. You could lose all your money doing this sort of stuff if you don't know what you're doing. Like, there's so many ways to lose money in crypto. Like, it's much better than it used to be, but it's still in a lot of ways the Wild West. There are exchanges that just disappear one day, are there one day and gone the next. So,
Yeah, man.
it's not for everybody. Like, there are a lot of people that just cannot figure out how to self custody, how to send crypto. There's so many ways to mess up. You could send it to the wrong address. There's so many ways to lose your money. And really, just, I mean, this goes without saying. I'm sure most people who are listening knows this, but yeah,
Yeah.
none of this is financial advice, and we're just documenting what we're interested in, because this is how we spend our time. We like to look at the charts.
And the thing is, mate, if Casper does do what I think it's going to do, and it does, genuinely fulfill that role of the money, then you don't need that much, to be honest, to be,
Hmm.
massively wealthy in the future.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
it does reach these sort of valuations of Bitcoin's current market cap, and then potentially beyond in the future,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
don't need a huge amount. So
No, you don't need a huge amount. I think people get greedy. They think that they overinvest. I've been guilty of it, back when I was first kind of getting into it. I just put too much money into it, and it caused me a lot of stress, and so I learned my lesson the hard way. So, yeah, you don't need to put all your money into, something that's super volatile. That's just maybe in my opinion, it's the wrong approach. So, you don't need, yeah, yeah. A little money can go a long way in the markets if you pick the right thing.
exactly, yeah,
So, and this just looks. I'm just looking at this. Like, this just looks like such a beautiful accumulation range when you really break it down. It's just, to me, it looks like it's really providing a bit of a base. Like, I feel like the next move, once it really breaks out, could be a big one. Like,
yeah, it's felt volatile, obviously, but I think in hindsight we're going to look back at this entire 6 month period and be like, that was sideways, bro. I don't know what I was thinking. That was just a sideways
yeah,
move.
yeah, yeah. It just looks. I mean, it just looks nice. It looks primed for upside. So, yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Any last remarks, or we've been going actually now for an hour. I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure we could probably go longer, but maybe we'll begin to wrap up.
yeah. I think that's pretty much everything I've got on my mind. I think this has been a valuable conversation, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. Me too. We'll have to do more of these, I think. Yeah, and anybody who's still here, still watching, feel free to drop a comment below on what you liked or what you didn't like, or things we could expand on more in the future. To be honest, we actually recorded a video yesterday, and then afterwards I realized I messed up and had the mic settings wrong and had to scratch it, and we redid it. So yeah, so it's just a learning process. Well, if you guys have any burning desires or questions, drop them below, and we're gonna do more videos. They're gonna get better over time. And yeah, you guys could follow Miko on both Twitter and on YouTube. His contact info is down here on the bottom. So Miko
Yeah,
Genno.
make sure to subscribe and like this video as well, to subscribe to Jim. So I'm sure you
Yep.
are already subscribed. But
Yeah, yeah, and thanks for watching. I'll drop Miko's information in the description below, and um, yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hope you're doing well, having a good day, good night, wherever you are. Wishing you well. Thanks for tuning in.
cheers, guys.